I was saying
Insane,
that like
man.
this is one of those Pokemon that like in time is slowly gonna make its way back. So then I gained the podcast, and so I started bringing those people in, and then I started getting involved in the APA, the GBA. Started with Patty Trills, and then Kyle. I developed a cool friendship with Kyle, with Joey. A lot of great names, K. Changing things up. The BBR is actually like we just did a draft stream today because the new season begins next week for week 1, and we're doing something that will be the first major Wi-Fi draft league in Generation 9 to ban terrestrialization. This is Pokemon is my way of escaping. I'm sure that there's a lot of people listening that can resonate with just this being the escape from your day-to-day life. This is a way to shut that whole world off and to just really unwind. Pokemon's been the number one.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Skill Link podcast, where we chat and get to know passionate content creators, competitive players, and all voices who continue to make the Pokemon community incredible. And today's guest is an expert in draft leagues, VGC, and overall Pokemon battling, because he's participated in leagues like the BBR, GBA, the LTM, and a lot more. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is the Grandmaster D.Rey. How you doing, my man?
What's up, man? That was one heck of an intro.
We love it.
Going, I was like, dang.
We try to make those fun. Yeah, it's like the further we've gone on bringing more people, we try and make them more extravagant, and people are like, dang, yeah, when you list it all out like that, it's pretty cool. So
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. What's going on, beautiful people? Hi, guys.
Awesome. We're good.
Honestly, I looking at your rap sheet, I was like trying to, because I mean, you've participated in a lot, like, and this is just like one of the cool things is like you got a lot of experience in draft league, and then like even VGC under your belt a little bit, which I think is so cool. Kind of have the dual side of like the Pokemon community and like battling, and also just kind of different approaches to both of those. And so it was really cool to kind of just see the rap sheet that you truly have, and to kind of like start writing it down. I'm like, I don't even think I can get it all on there, but like for like a short intro. And so it's an honor to have you on. But kind of before we get into your content and your expertise, we wanted to get to know you just a little bit more. We're kind of curious, outside of Pokemon, what interests and hobbies take up your time?
This is Pokemon is my way of escaping. I'm sure that there's a lot of people listening that can resonate with just this being the escape from your day-to-day life. As an adult, like I'm over 30, so if that resonates to anybody, this is a way to shut that whole world off and take some time for yourself and involve people in the community, so you can just de-stress and forget about everything else just for a moment, a period of time, to just really unwind. Pokemon's been the number one since I've been a kid, but this is my number one hobby. I've been a personal trainer for over a decade. So the fitness lifestyle is definitely like consumed me outside of just Pokemon and day-to-day life. So if I'm not playing Pokemon, I'm typically at the gym or doing some kind of outdoor activity to keep myself moving. With life and being a dad of 2, sometimes it's kind of hard to cram in all this stuff in one day. So I think it kind of sums up and always comes down to the common denominator of just Pokemon and being able to be like, oh, I had a really long day. It's been stressful, but now I get a chance for an hour of my time to just, unwind, relax. And Pokemon's always been that for me.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Completely agree. It's such a comfort thing. Yeah. I mean,
it is.
I honestly, I vibe with you on that a lot on that, because with work, everything going on, same thing. I'll hit the gym. That's my way to get out of the house for a little bit, and then I'll come home and hang out with the wife for a second, and then she'll go off and grab her Kindle, do her reading, and I'm like, all right, that means I'm good to go, and and play some Pokemon or watch some YouTube videos, and I'm like, this is my time to shine. So, but yeah, like you said, it's always been that thing just to kind of fall back on. Like, I know a lot of people we talk to, it's like, hey, this is like the big thing as a kid, and I know some people might, fall away playing it for a while, but everyone we brought back on there kind of around our age, late 20s, early 30s, it's like something happened where it's like we all just gravitated back towards Pokemon again, and it's like, dude, this is where we're at. It's that comfort thing, I know, for a lot of us. So I definitely vibe with you on that, 100%.
But it's funny because like when you say that about your lady, is that what people don't grasp most of the time is that we crave a reality that is outside of our own.
Yeah.
And for those who use Pokemon as that, it's more of a well known to others when they're kids, but it's to the majority in our community, it's something that we maintain as that alternate reality when we want to just not think about all the stresses in our lives. And then other people do it in other ways. The number one you hear all the time is reading, right? You read a story to find these characters in a fantasy world that you build in your brain as you read the book. That's the comparison I give to people all the time. They're like, hey, why do you still love Pokemon? And my first one is typically like, well, you love to read. And most will say, yeah. I was like, well, it's the same thing. You read your characters and in your mind, you build a story. It's the same as me. These are fantasy characters that I build a story and I find comfort to them. So it's just basically finding different avenues that help you feel more comfortable and escaping what you have in your day to day to ultimately to stay sane, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and the story can, like, you know, it differs from day to day, right? Because you're kind of in charge of the, you know, how it kind of plays out because of your prep or because, you know, depending on what you're doing, right? Like, my wife, she loves like standard, like the regular puzzles, right? You know, put the pieces together and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But I was trying to explain to her, like, Pokemon in a lot of ways is that kind of puzzle niche for me, but not in the same way of like, okay, I got to find the piece, but it's like, how am I going to configure this piece to meet the needs that I need in this story, right? And if it's, you know, Josh and I, we also do some ROM hack Soul Links as well, and so we'll have our docs up, and it's like, hey, how do we make our team so we can beat this, you know, beat this boss fight, and so it's kind of fun to, you know, see, and you get some of the craziest things. Like we had. Was it an Anorith, John? What was your? No, it was Inkay. It was Inkay, right?
Inkay, yeah. Inkay was the piece that we needed.
we had a boss battle. It was the first gym, and Josh was, you know, I had gotten out. Josh was having like a little bit more of a troublesome fight just because of our pairs and things like that.
It was bad.
But then he reversed sweet contrary Inkay, and it was amazing.
Well, it's funny because that was like my plan D or something like that, right? Because it was Roxanne from Emerald, so rock type gym, and we both had Groviles. We were gonna just skill link bullet seed our way through it all, and it all fell apart. And then you know, it's just like you say, that is the piece of the puzzle where it's like, all right, half my team's wiped out. I guess I'm gonna send out the little squid, and then, you know, carries you to the top.
And that's what's cool about Pokemon, right? For those who actually like play the game, or there's the surface level for the majority of the just population that see Pokemon as this fun. The trading card game is kind of like manipulated everyone's mindset to being like a children's game, but when you really dive into like the competitive aspect to it, it's the perfect marriage of chess and poker. And if you're really stimulated by strategy games, and that's those who like chess, if you like Sudoku, it's the same concept as being able to look at something and find your way to get to your goal, to your or to the win, essentially. And so Pokemon is probably the most complex game I have ever seen, and so many different variables and so many different things that can happen. And they're very smart to not only have this as, you know, preppable as you can imagine, and then also add an element of RNG where there's some things you can't control, where you have to get lucky. And that's why the stress and the anxiety that comes along with it also induces the adrenaline rush that you always look for and get into the outcome that you want. And that's why it's so tough, especially with competitive battling, whether if it's in the video game championships for VGC or in Draft League singles competitive. It's just such an adrenaline rush. Out of all this preparation and like little pieces that you have for the game, it's very addicting. It's really rewarding.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it, honestly. Yeah, it really is such a complex. I swear, like something will pop up, and even after doing competitive or being deep into that side of things for a while now, I'll learn something new like every day, or you know, a battle will happen. I'll be like, oh man, I had no idea that interaction existed, and it just made all that more addictive because it's through a game that ties deeply to our nostalgia, our childhood. So it's not just like some generic, you know, RPG game out there with, you know, just some typical video game tropes or whatever. It's like, no man, it's Pokemon, man. We all love Pokemon growing up, but now it's this super deep strategy game where it's like, you know, it's the best of both worlds in that aspect. So
exactly.
And it kind of leads to my next question. So I mean, as far as your personal journey growing up, did you play the games? Did you collect cards, watch the anime? How did you get to where you are today with the franchise?
Yeah, this is my favorite question. I just ask this question a lot, which is great for my old podcast. So date back, guys. Listen, I'm over 30. And so we'll date this back. I was here in the Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow days. That's how long I've been here. I actually I stumbled upon Pokemon by accident. For those of the old heads that are still around, I call them old heads, but in the competitive scene, I'm actually very young, ironically enough. I recently went to LA and I realized, wow, I'm young in comparison to people that play this professionally, do this for a living. And but back then I was a big Digimon fan. Digimon came out in '98, dude. And Digimon shared the same network as Pokemon for the first season on Fox, and they shared time at WB. And so as a kid, this was back when the TVs were like the size of boulders. They were massive. and sometimes your parents would have to hide their remote if you're in trouble and you can't watch TV. And I found the remote one day and I didn't know what channel my Digimon was on because my dad would always put it on for me and I was in trouble. So I ended up just turning it on and going through the channels, and I stopped and there was an episode of Pokemon. It was brand new. It wasn't the pilot, but it was the one after. It was after Ash gained Pikachu's trust. And they're about to go fight Brock. And so the Brock episode was the first one, and I just got hooked. I asked him if I can go back to the same channel. My dad's like, "You want to go back to Digimon?" I was like, "No, I want to see what happens." And so I ended up watching the anime. And that the winter was the release of Pokemon Yellow. Back then, they had this yellow Game Boy that was like a special edition that came with the game as like a promo to get those sales up. And so that was my first game, is Pokemon Yellow. And I got Red soon after. So I actually stumbled upon it. It was a complete accident. I wasn't even supposed to touch the television, but I found the remote. And I'm super grateful that I did. My dad was like, "You're not going to watch it. You shouldn't even been watching TV." And I was like, So I just got stuck on it ever since.
Love it.
That's amazing. Fate brought you there. I love it, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I remember the anime being. So I have two older brothers, and so they had gotten the games, and that was kind of my major introduction to it. But the anime was such, it's such a special time to like kind of. It's another one of those things, kind of seeing the story that you play on the game come to life through a character like Ash, and it's kind of crazy that now. After what was it, 20 something years, that he's the champion now, and it's like I rewatched that.
Oh, that was crazy. The most. So it's funny because this when he won his championship is the like upspring of TikTok, right? Everyone has TikTok, so Pokemon still is all over TikTok, and whenever something is like. As the people that are in their 30s are now the main source of TikTok content, all of them are of the Pokemon like age from back then. So they're making like funny videos of like Ash winning and they're like crying like, "Finally it's time." So some of my old friends came back and watched and they're like, "He didn't age." It's like, no, he didn't age, but he finally won. And that's when everybody came back. It was full circle. It's cool to see. It was cool to see like after all these years, it's like now it's finally done. And it was like emotional, like having to let go, which is really cool.
Yeah, it was sweet. And it's pretty cool to see how, kind of a bit of a deviation, but it's cool how the animation has changed. Like honestly, some of the battling sequences from the
more
last
aggressive,
Oh, they're awesome, man. I've said that I'm casually rewatching. It had been a while since I've watched any of the anime stuff too. Like same thing, loved it growing up. But I'm like, oh yeah, I see some like on Netflix or Hulu. They have like Sun and Moon or X and Y, and I'm like, let's toss some of these on. And they're very much for kids. But I'm like, some of these X and Y battle sequences are these are pretty impressive, man. You got me kind of hyped on
like the
sequences.
Dragon Ball Z days. They got really aggressive with it.
And when they're bringing in the mega stuff, I'm like, man, these are like some crazy over the top battle sequences. That's what I'm here for.
Definitely, it's the anime is cool.
No, it's pretty cool to see Ash get that though. So. But
it's all great. All right, now we kind of want to delve into your content a little bit more, kind of focus on your expertise and get to know, kind of see what you can teach us, see what you can tell the people, and just kind of, let them see what you do best. So our first one is you've done a lot of draft leagues and, various things like that. And we're kind of curious to get into, you've had a couple different teams and mascots. And I think that's one of the funnest aspects of the draft side of things is that you kind of get to create your own almost like coach persona. And so I'm kind of curious because like you've had, I believe it's the San Diego Spirits. And then
it's been quite a few.
There's the Snugglers. I saw the Snugglers on there as well.
Yeah.
With Mimikyu, which I thought was amazing. And so I'm just kind of curious, kind of what is your inspiration, for those teams, and how did you choose your mascots? I'm just kind of curious, like how did that kind of get started and kind of inspire you to, in the beginning of your draft league and even now, as you're kind of deciding, draft league stuff. So
yeah, I guess that's a good question. There's so many layers to that. It kind of like pulls into like how I actually came into the community. So Mimikyu ended up being my favorite Pokemon. Well, now my second, thanks to Annihilate showing up. But back then, Mimikyu was my favorite Pokemon of all time. I've always had this thing for ghost types. I don't know. It's probably because my family celebrates Dia de los Muertos. I'm Latino. My first language is Spanish, so sometimes my English will crack. And so like for whatever, and I live in San Diego, and the majority of my time for my like family time is spent in Old Town San Diego, and it still has the Dia de los Muertos vibe. It just resonates with me.
That's
So
awesome.
the
So
ghost
cool.
typing really got on. And as I came into competitive Pokemon, so I was actually on this platform called Amiibo. Amiibo was a app source where people had community before Discord kind of really came about. As far as I know from my people, that I guess Skype was like a thing, but while Skype was around, Amiibo was there, and I was kind of like diving into just community talk with people and really getting into it. And in 2016 is when I went out into I think it was Oregon. I went out to Worlds, or I can't remember which championship it was. I went to go spectate one, and that's when I was like, I really want to get into this. And so I met a couple different people. I downloaded the Discord app, and that's when Generation 7 came about. Generation 7 just released, and this Jesse, I think like a couple of episodes have passed, or like some preludes happened, because in Gen 7 Z moves were a thing. And Mimikyu had a special one called Let's Snuggle Forever, and it was like super trademarked all over the place. And so Pokemon plastered that thing everywhere. So when I was spectating, there was a Let's Snuggle Forever like poster. I was like, what is that? I've never seen that Pokemon before. And I was like, where's his face? Is that Pikachu? So I thought it was a super cool concept. I guess it's about a demon-like creature that is so hideously horrible to look at that it would actually kill people on sight. And so therefore it would wear a disguise as the number one most loved Pokemon to, gain some love from people. I was like, oh, that's a cool concept. There's a lot of thought brought into that. So I ended up like really resonating with it. And so I'm from San Diego. I saw the Let's Snuggle Forever. I feel like the San Diego Snugglers just makes sense. And so that's how like my first draft like league logo came about. And it's not how it was. It was really bad back in the day. It was a really interesting design that I had. It was like a shield. It was bad. But in that time is when I met a couple people. I came into the community because I saw on Twitter back then that there was a big community group, and they would have tournaments. It was called TTM, and they would have these summer tournaments. And basically they would have a link to the Discord server. So that was the very first time I went into Discord. And I hop into this community that has like 3,000 people. I was like, oh my God, people are talking and you can't even carry a conversation because this thing's like going so fast. Yeah. And then they announced like a tournament, and I was like, whatever, I'll sign up for this. I have no idea what the heck I'm doing, but I'll sign up for it. And you get put into pools of coaches in which you start to play. And I was asking people what this is about. He's like, basically think of fantasy football with Pokemon. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's actually really cool. This makes sense. And one of those people I met, his name was Jason Dietite, and he was a really cool guy that was just like really, really nice. He was asking me about my day, genuinely like asking me like what was happening in life. And so we grew this friendship. And fun fact, he was like one of the main people in the American Pokemon Association, the APA, which was legendary back then. It was a huge draft league. Yeah. Back the names like A-Drive, PokeMMD played that, Kyle A lot of people that was like the main staple of competitive Pokemon on YouTube was the APA. And at that time is also the NPL, I believe, which Joe Dor was also commissioning. So those are the two main there, along with the GBA. Yeah, those are like the main guys, right? So the APA was owned by Panther too, and Miticus, and Jason was good friends with them. And APA had a D League, developmental league, and he goes, "Hey, if you want to play Wi-Fi on the Nintendo 3DS, then this would be a cool way to start." So he brought me into the developmental league, and that's how I met everybody. Because I met Jason, I started mingling with Panther and with a couple other folks. My channel really didn't go anywhere. I started a YouTube channel because everybody else did. Apparently, like Draft League is a way to make content, but back then, if you didn't have a capture card on a 3DS, you can't really play unless you do replays. So I caught the very end of Generation 7 right before the Switch came out. And then now that we have the easier access to like recording gameplay on the Elgato, I was like, oh, I can actually do this. I started playing a little bit. The game seemed unplayable for Draft League, but we started doing other stuff because of timer and all that fun stuff. And so that's when I started, and I was like, I'm very competitive. I'm very like, I have to, if I'm going to do something, I have to do it like really well and being the best. It's like a standard I have for myself. Like if I have a hobby and there's other people that are doing something, I want to do it as good as they are. I was like, okay, how do I gain subscribers out of nowhere? And I was talking to a friend here in real life that does networking, and I was like, just talking to him about stuff. And he's like, what are you doing? I was like, playing Pokemon. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it though, because all these people have, talk about Joey, like, at that time, like 100,000 subs. I'm over here with 20. I'm like, I don't really think anyone cares about what I'm doing. I might as well just go back and play. And he's like, well, the best way you can grow is by bringing those people into your content. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
I guess that makes sense. Kind of like
Yeah.
piggybacking. So then I grew into podcast. And so I started bringing those people in. And then I started getting involved in the APA, the GBA. I got Joey Pokémon MD on my I started with Patty Trills, and then Kyle. I developed a cool friendship with Kyle, with Joey. A lot of great names, K Cray. Now one of the casters on one of the main casters for VGC, Sierra Dawn, she was on my podcast.
Oh yeah,
That's sweet. Yeah.
I have a cool friendship too. So
That's
all these
awesome.
people that I gained these relationships with, now all of a sudden I became like this draft league guy. And so it just ended up snowballing from there. But that was like the long stretch answer. But my actual teams kind of developed as the games did, because the Mimikyu logo came about, and then Generation 8 came on, and then it molded into the Los Angeles Guerrilla Tactics, because I thought that Galarian Darmanitan was really cool. And then it went back to the Snugglers because I was like, well, Mimikyu is in Generation 7 and 8, and he's about to be in 9. So I might as well go back to the Snugglers because this Pokemon's consistently in every game. And then they introduced Annihilate, and I was like, this Pokemon's the coolest thing. Not only is it an evolution of a Gen 1 Pokemon, and the concept is also really cool. The fact that its evolution happens because it fights and it's so aggressive that it literally dies. And an evolution is when it turns into Annihilate. I thought that was such a great concept. And then most recently, I was like, well, I miss Mimikyu. This is cool. Let's put them together and call them spirits. And so that's kind of like the overall like evolution of those guys, and just the push for me back into Draft League.
That's so sweet.
That's so cool. I love it.
Well, the actual design. Oh yeah, sorry, Logan, you go.
I was just gonna say the same thing, dude. So you continue.
Oh, the actual logo of the San Diego Spirits with the Annihilate and the and the Mimikyu is pretty sweet too. We'll have to flash it up on screen so people can see, but it looks really cool. It looks cooler than we have to do some more design on ours, Logan. So Logan is the so he used to live in a city called Riverton. So he's the Riverton Red Sox. With Sock, and then I used to live in a city called Linden, and I was the Linden Ludicolo's. And we have like a little like logo, like a font and everything. But I'm like, man, I need to step up my game after seeing the San Diego Spirits.
I can't take credit. I really can't. SP Crash, huge shout out to SP Crash. He was the artist that created that. So
that's cool.
With the blessed relationships I have for the Draft League community and all this, there was Joey Pokemon MD. Recently was in my league, the BBR that I commissioned, that I own. And he then kind of brought in, as he's a massive creator, he was the first to kind of bring in those 500,000 subscriber content creators like Numb Nexus and a couple others. And they're all real good buddies since a long time, but they've never really wanted to dive back into Draft League. And as understandably so, they've been knowing each other for years. The BBR was for Joey to come in because he loves Draft League. And then he ended up branching out and doing his own Draft League with my friend Shuckle King and called it the SPL. And in the SPL, he had everybody come back. This is like WBE, the World Battle Entertainment 2.0. And as everyone came back into Draft League and adding Draft League back into their regular Pokemon content, they all had like rebrands. And SP Crash was the one that did all of these logos for Uzi Gunner and the Thunderclap Titans. He did a couple others in the league. And so because I was in that group, I was like, hey, Crash, would you be willing to do mine? He goes, for sure. So nice. We had that connection. He was able to squeeze me in, so I got a little benefactor after that. So that's how that was done.
That's so cool.
There we go. So I want to ask you as well about the actual team that you have for this, because this is one of you've posted a couple of recent battles with the team. I watched the one with you did when you get CJ Jensen. So your team, you got a Annihilate, Spectrier, Clefable, Chargebug, Zarude, and Fracture on the squad. So I want to ask you, tell us about the general strategy and archetype of that team. Like, what role do each of those Mons play? Obviously, a couple of Eviolite guys, and what kind of drew you towards that build?
You know what's funny is that the most recent leagues I've actually not done very well in. Really? It's funny how like the content kind of dilutes the actual competitive nature whenever you become a content creator. Right. When I was in the early stages of Generation, I was in the late stages of Generation 8, early of 9, we're talking playoffs all the time. I'm in a draft league right now called the BPL. It's on Showdown, and I'm about to play in finals here this week. And it's funny because it's almost like it's tough to you dilute yourself in trying your focus to be on the content, being entertaining, saying funny, stupid stuff to get someone to hit the like button and just not keep focused on the league. But to answer your question, that was more of like a throwaway game to me, being like, because the league, the JJDL is owned by John Jr., really close friend of mine. He's one of my admins in my league. That's awesome. And it started off really well, and then it tanked towards the end. And the reason those not fully evolved Pokemon came was because we're taking one last hurrah. Like, if you guys sat the bench all season, let's go. But the main architect is that Charjabug with the Eviolite is very, very bulky, and it's very good at setting up Sticky Web. And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, cool. If this is, we're going to go all out, I'm going to set up Sticky Web. And for those who don't know, Fracture hits actually really, really hard. Fracture is one of those Pokemon that after a Dragon Dance, it really hits hard. So if I can get a Sticky Web up and he gets swept by Fracture, that would be the funniest thing literally ever. So I thought if I can leave on a high note and get 2 non-fully evolved Pokemon to pop off, that'd be incredible. So I was like, you know what? There's these other Pokemon. Archaludon is better for the matchup, but you know what? Send the bench because Charjabug and Fracture are gonna come into play. And it was good for views. People liked it. It was funny, like Charjabug, BP Bus actually did something.
Dude, yeah, Fracture has a attack stat of 117. I didn't realize it was that high. That's crazy.
Cow.
Yeah, 117, dude. That's higher than a lot of
that's insane.
With Mold Breaker after a Dragon Dance, it hits pretty hard.
Oh,
and
it
gets the same priority. It just doesn't get, the only thing it doesn't get from Axorus is Earthquake. It gets Stomping Tantrum. Aside from that, but if there isn't a heavy physically defensive wall, it could snowball pretty fast.
Do something. That's sweet.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's super, super cool.
I'm sure Logan could say the same thing, but yeah, with our draft league, like you said, each season we'll do a different format or a different generation, just some sort of different meta to shake things up. And it's super casual. It's just us and 10 to 15 other people, depending on how many sign up for the season. And one season, you'll do great and you feel like you're killing it, and then next season or next format will come around, and if your attention's a little divided, or if you're not on your game, or if you don't love your team, don't do as well. So it's kind of funny how that works out. Like last year I was in the finals, and then this season different format, and I'm just not doing as well. So it's that's the fun of it, though. It's something different each time. So
yeah, consistency is tough to stick on with competitive Pokemon for sure.
Yeah, but that's fun. Like I said again, I feel like something new will pop up every week with a different interaction. I'm like, dude, I've been doing this for years, and I had no idea that was a thing, or I knew it was a thing, but I just completely overlooked it because there's like a million other things I'm trying to stay on top of as well. So, but anyways, yeah.
Exactly. No, it's tough. It's always a fun way to find some balance, though, which is cool. Like changing things up. The BBR is actually like, we just did a draft stream today because the new season begins next week for week 1, and we're doing something that will be the first major Wi-Fi draft league in Generation 9 to ban terrestrialization.
Yeah, I saw you on that. Yeah.
So it's for all the competitive players that are with the high count for subscribers. Usually the viewers want to see the shiny diamond Pokemon do some fun things. And at first it was like, okay, this is a broken mechanic. We really can't allow this for the competitive prowess. Okay, well then how do we make it balance? Let's go ahead and let the smaller guys, the lower tier Pokemon, only be the ones that terrestrialize. So it's really cool to see, like in a low tier Pokemon terrestrialize and pop off, so that's kind of been the way. But even then, like you get like a Basculin that all of a sudden is Terra Water and is Okoing Pokemon because it's a low tier without it, but with Terra it's also broken. So we're like, well, this isn't very fun. So we don't get to have the flashiness. So all of the commissioners of all leagues and all creators that are participating are like, dang, it's tough to shy away from Terra as like a viewership. So we're just going to be like, the heck with it. We'll be the first to ban it as a whole, and it's just going to be straight up competitive Pokemon without it. And we'll see how that rides. We'll be the first of Gen 9, so we'll see how it rides.
That'll be kind of crazy because that'll be like probably the first time people have played without like some sort of major game, like the main game mechanic, like Omega's Z moves or Terra, for like the last 10 years nearly now. So it's like we've been having some sort of these mechanics, and so it's actually kind of almost like it's Gen 5 again, where it's just the Pokemon and what they can do. So that'll be really, really cool to see kind of how, because obviously there's Pokemon that like Basculin that gets that water type, and all of a sudden it's good, and so it's kind of cool to see what how everything kind of shifts because of this change that you guys are doing. That's gonna be awesome to see.
Yeah, it's good to remove the main mechanic of a game. It's tough on a content side. It really is. Like people want to see the reason that the game is there, and they kind of shy away from it because now you weed out the people that see, ooh, cool shiny game, and you direct your audience to the people that only watch it for actual competitive play. Yeah, which unfortunately for viewership on YouTube is not very high. The bucket of that is much smaller than the casual viewer, which is typically why you'll see larger creators expand their repertoire of content from like how you guys do Nuzlocke, or they'll do shiny hunting, or they'll ladder and then do fun challenges. Shady Penguin does a lot of live plays on Radical Red. Game Boy Luke, who once was in Draft League, he's always doing really fun stuff with Vinny, which is like, we can only use Pokemon that are the color red, for whatever reason, like those things kind of pop off. You can't use it because it's red. So Gyarados is shiny, so you can use Gyarados. So like, we're going to pigeonhole our viewership a little bit, but I think for the overall bucket of people that do appreciate competitive Pokemon, will really enjoy the season.
Absolutely. That's really cool. I'm excited to see how that plays out.
That's awesome. I kind of want to ask you, as we're kind of getting into, more of the actual gameplay side and how you tackle kind of an opponent. I'm curious, like how do you approach a match? Like, watching back some of your content, you do a really good analysis kind of from what I'm seeing, but like how are you assessing your opponent and prepping for a specific match? Whether that be draft or VGC, I'm just kind of curious. What are you looking for? How do you get yourself to be confident in the matchups that you're going up against?
For Draft League, most recently, it's funny because when I was doing really well, I had a group of people that were always helping. There's always mock battles that are really beneficial. In the beginning, I wasn't big for it because you would have friends. Right now, I brought back a front office because BBR is back, and I'm trying my best as the commissioner to really perform well. And I haven't been. It's because I've been doing my own prep work, and I haven't been doing that practicing on seeing how like scenarios can play through. Thinking almost 3 steps ahead kind of thing. So on the aspect of preparation, it's really like, if I'm speaking with just preparing myself, it's honestly like thinking, okay, how do I find my best positioning to be aggressive and win the game versus not preparing, or preparing in a way where how can I not lose the game? That's when I find the most success, is whenever people see a threat and are afraid, and they're more prepping for how they can't lose versus preparing how my opponent can be on the back foot and how can I put the gas on the pedal. This is a very offensive metagame this generation. So that was my playstyle in Gen 8. It was very balanced. It was very, you hit me, that's a laugh, no damage. And I just keep switching around until eventually I wear you down. But here, these Pokemon have the power creep has been incredible. And that just didn't translate very well. And so now it's just, how do you win and how do you overwhelm ASAP? And the benefit to having like a group of people that help you mock and prepare is that they always think of scenarios that you don't, right? There's always one loophole. Everyone has an advantage. It's just about who can see it the best. Sometimes you'll overlook something and a friend of yours will be like, well, now you lose to this, even though it sounds like it may not be the scenario, but it could. And it's funny, when the game actually plays out, the one thing you thought wasn't going to happen does. And you're like, and then all of a sudden you'll blame like, that's bad. It's not, it worked, like you lost because it worked. It's not that you thought it was bad. It's very subjective in that sense. So making sure that as you solo prep, to make sure that how can you win that game. And it's always good to have a circle of people to help you out along the way. It's nothing about being too prideful of what your stuff is, and your knowledge is not a challenge to that. It's just having people assist you on the way there. It's the same way as having teammates and a coach. And I kind of was like that from the beginning of my draft league career. And it was more successful than it was when I did it on my own. So if you guys have a bunch of people that you can rely on week in and week out, and they have the time to do so, I definitely say lean on them.
Definitely.
That's so cool. I love that.
Logan, you go. Sorry, follow up on that.
I was just going to follow up with the mock battles. I'm curious. So is this like, you ask your friends to kind of prep a team that would be similar that you're going to be facing that week? Or is it like, that's very cool. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was
so basically you have the matchup, and then they'll create the 6 that they think they'll be best against you. And at first I was like, well, I'm playing you. And so like you'll probably not think what they're going to think and make a different move, but that's looking at it the incorrect lens. It's just more so of progressing and how you can fix each scenario. So if something's going on, how can you get yourself back ahead? What plays do you need to make to reposition yourself to win that game? And being able to mock battle with someone, regardless if it is in your opponent, it's still presenting the Pokemon in front of you and allowing you to find different ways to win the game, because it's never going to be linear. It's never going to go to plan. You can have a game plan and something's going to happen. It's usually because of RNG. You get a critical hit, you miss a move, and now you have to reposition, and you have to keep your calm. A lot of the times when I lose my games, it's because I'm like, I just tilted because I got crit, or I tilted because I missed a hydro pump. Okay, I missed the hydro pump. Now how do I fix this? How do I get back in position? And that's what mock battles do. Okay, if I miss, how do I reposition? And so since I remembered this is what I did in mocks, I'll apply this here.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's just a matter
That's really cool.
of the muscle memory, like just seeing it
Yep.
in front of you, having your brain go through the process of problem solving while looking at that specific team in front of you. Because yeah, like you said, there are, I mean, millions and millions of different states any given Pokemon battle can be in with a certain 6v6 matchup.
Mm-hmm. And then
You never, yeah.
good.
I was gonna say, yeah, and then you never want to be in a battle and think, hey, I never tried to condition my brain to be like, hey, what could happen here?
Yep.
You never want to be in a battle and like this is the first time I'm thinking of this. You want to try and like think of, I mean, you can't think of every possible way a battle can play out, but you want to at least have gone through certain motions where you can like, hey, I know that it can branch like 3 or 4 different ways on this turn, and none of those ways are going to be super shocking to me because I was able to do a couple of run throughs beforehand and say, hey, I know that
Mm-hmm.
this could be a possibility, or hey, if I miss here, like I need to know that there's still a way out. But if I, whereas if you didn't practice for that and you miss, and yeah, like you said, you get tilted, and it's really easy to get tilted or to get full parrot
Yeah,
or hacks or any sort
exactly.
of status condition. So, but
And
yeah, what were you gonna say?
hacks can be a win con. And then on the
Yes.
video game championship side and the double side, I just finished participating in LA regionals. That was fun. Preparing for that
That's
is a
awesome.
whole other beast. It's a lot easier because there's people that have done it, and all you have to do is just follow the format. Unless
Yeah.
you are one of those trailblazers. We got some awesome, like Moxie boosted, does a great job following Wolf Click and what he does, following what Rajon
Yep.
Ring does. Everything that you see is top tier. There's some great articles and resources out there that can show you what they brought. Not necessarily how they're trained EV wise, but they'll tell you the moves because it's an open sheet format. What performed the best? Literally just use that team, and if you want to change it up a little bit. But it's very meta. You're going to see the same things. Really, the ones that will come and find new stuff are the ones that do this for a full-time living and are participating in all these regional tournaments. So that's a little bit easier to prepare for. Like, what do you want to use? Like, what meta game Pokemon do you want to use, and how do you make sure you help win that? And so that's really fun because this is different from Draft League versus in Draft League, you have a same pool of coaches and everyone has a team, and you get to see that matchup each and every week. Versus this, you and I can have the same team randomly. And so like it's more of like positioning and finding a way to win. And it's cool that this generation is an open team sheet format where you literally hand your opponent a sheet that has your moves on it, your items, and what your terrestrialization types are. And I have the same thing. Now we've eliminated the mind game, or eliminated the element of surprise. We know what's going to happen, but now are you going to make it? Are you going to use that hand, or do I think you're not going to do that and go a different route? So it's more strategic because everything's on the table. How do you position yourself? Now it's a full game of chess. So in competitive aspect, I've actually really fallen in love with competing. I had a great experience with some friends. We all got together here in LA, and we were talking about how we really wanted to make a big push for 2025 World Championships to get those championship points because they're having it in San Francisco this next year. And so it's very easy for me to get to, a lot of my friends to get to, and it's not going to be in Hawaii across the pond, which is much harder to get to. And so that'd be a lot of fun. And it's fun to just do local tournaments because it's the same thing, right? Like the three of us can be matched up, one of us can be matched up, and we could be running the same 6 Pokemon. And we'll have very similar teams, but now it's really a game of skill. Like, how do you position yourself to win this game? So that's really it's a very different beast, and it's become very addicting for sure.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I was actually going to ask you because about this a little bit more because I was kind of curious, like, how did you go about choosing your team? I believe it was a Miraidon, Ursaluna, Blood Moon, Whimsicott, Iron Hands, Chi-Yu, and Farigiraf.
Yep, you got it. That's all 6. Honestly, it was very rushed. I had an idea because I was starting my prep as we were getting ourselves ready for LA. And that's when Rajon, I apologize, Rajon, we met there. I forgot his last name, but Rajon won the Indianapolis regional tournament with Miraidon.
Yeah.
And it was very out of the blue because people thought the Calyrex forms were going to be the dominant restricteds. And then Terapagos was going to be sprinkled in there. Everyone forgot about Groudon. Kyogre was kind of falling off. Zamazenta was falling into place a little bit, and we're like, okay, Miraidon seems cool on paper, but I don't think it's so oppressive like the horses are. So the fact that he won it, I thought that was pretty cool because it's funny because I got the Scarlet games. I thought Koraidon was a cooler looking design.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I thought Miraidon ended up being a little bit more user friendly than Koraidon. Koraidon is since Orichalcum Pulse brings up the sun, and it really facilitates those photosynthesis like legendary Pokemon that are all over the place, like Fluttermane all over the place. We have probably, I would say, Roar. How would I say this? The more oppressive one is totally forgetting his name. The prehistoric version of Raikou. It's like leaving me at the moment.
Raging Bolt.
Raging Bolt.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so those are making it tough to really have a lot of Koraidon teams on there. It's like, okay, cool. So Miraidon feels like it just fills right in. And since the team that Rajan brought, I was like, okay, cool. That's really easy to use. Very self-explanatory, very straightforward. You literally click an electric type move. You click an electric type button, and it does almost 50% to max Spadef Amoonguses. It's a 2-hit KO on rolls on Assault Vest Rillabooms. It's really tough to deal with. I was like, okay, I just click a button. This should be pretty easy. So I just pulled a couple pieces out and replaced some things here and there. And it was a fun run. It was really easy to use. So it's really just finding a team. I found Rajan's team and I changed a couple pieces out to make it more comfortable. I took Incineroar out, put Chiyu in because it's a button clicker. This is an oppressive metagame that you literally click one button and do almost 60%. And the more times I could do that, the better. And I thought that it was a little bit better because of Ursaluna Blood Moon being there, and the Beads of Ruin facilitate Ursaluna more so than Incineroar does. And so it was really, really cool. And I actually also took Incineroar off because I didn't realize how you mentioned that you find out different mechanics. So Armor Tail blocks priority. I thought going into the tournament straight up, like I went into the tournament not knowing that it's only on your side of the field. So I thought it blocked all of it. So I was in a position in a game, I was 3-1 at one point. I was like, well, I'm about to get my second loss here because I needed to click Fake Out with my Iron Hands. And I was like, well, I can't do it now because Fergraph's here. But I was like, well, I ran out of time, and Fake Out was on the top list of my moveset.
She's clicked it.
And I clicked it, and it worked. And I was like, wait, is this a work on my side? I can still use it? And so this whole time, I've been prepping that I couldn't fake out my opponent while Fergraph was on the field, when it only protects my mons, not his. So I was like, well, and then I like looked up, and then my opponent was like, you okay? I was like, I'm fine.
I'm good actually.
No, we're good.
I'm great now.
Yeah, exactly. So that was fun.
That's crazy.
Interaction.
That's
awesome. Oh man, I love little things like that. I think I just learned like the other day that like I learned a similar thing like that, but like it's like psychic, like flying types are very good in terrain. Like, I mean, this is a silly thing that I should have known, but like flying types like are awesome in terrains, or levitate, air balloon, whatever it is, because they will ignore those effects as well. And it's and so it's like funny because like I didn't realize, or like for example like stellar type, I learned the other day that keeps the same. Like I was thinking that it just made you like it changes you to a stellar. Yeah, but it doesn't change your defenses or your like for example, fire type still can't be burned in the stellar typing, which I thought was actually pretty cool. Because you get some of the buffs without like necessarily all the negs, and so that was kind of fun and interesting to learn. And so it's so funny that like those scenarios are crazy. So I love those.
Yeah, it was like that was cool.
There you go. It's awesome.
I love it. I love it.
Well, we kind of have some fun questions for you now to kind of wrap up our chat. We have some like rapid fire questions that are just kind of just off the hip, first thing that comes to mind, and then we have a couple of shower thoughts, which are just random miscellaneous Pokemon questions that are kind of I guess semi deep, just stuff that you think about in the shower, hence the name shower thoughts. So first rapid fire question you have, just first thing off the top of your head, what is your favorite Pokemon type? And which Pokemon in that type is your favorite one?
Ghost, Mimikyu.
Okay.
Well, it's funny because you know what's crazy though is that it's actually like that came to first in the brain is because I've been a Mimikyu fan for so long, but my favorite Pokemon has shifted to Annihilate, but because it's been so long, that's what comes to brain first. But Annihilate is actually my first. But like I'm so programmed at this point that
to just say Mimikyu.
Just say it out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's right. Now, do you have a second, like one that's pretty firmly second favorite?
I have like a top 5 that have not moved since Annihilate came on, and it took a lot. It took a lot to really push Mimikyu out of the top slot. Like Annihilate is like I even tried to make this thing work competitively. For whatever reason, I can't use it. But Annihilate is my number 1 of all time, and then Mimikyu is number 2. Those are my top 2, and there's a little bit of a gap. 3 is Snorlax. As a kid, Snorlax was my favorite Pokemon.
Nice.
It's literally a poster boy of merchandise. You find pillows, it's everywhere.
Yep.
So it's kind of hard not to love Snorlax. And who doesn't like to eat and just take a nap? You know what I'm saying? And so Snorlax is number 3. Number 4 is Charizard. Everyone's generic. Charmander was my starter, so like it just grew up.
Can't go wrong with that.
Give it Megas, give it Gigantamax. Charizard's awesome. And then recently new Goldango snuck in. So Goldango's in there at right there at the very tail end, and that's kind of like the top echelon. And then the last one I kind of stick on there. It changes like from time to time. That's where Galarian Darmanitan kind of slides in, but those like the top 5.
Dude, nice picks. I like the mix of old school and new school. I respect that. Gotta have that.
That's a lot of fun. My next question for you is, what is your favorite held item?
Oh, rapid fire. Choice band scarf. The ones that clip buttons. the
mindless items.
The mindless item. When it all else fails, just click a stab move, and this is gonna do like 60%.
Yeah, just do as much damage as you can. I love it, dude.
Choice item.
So Pokemon's pretty well known for having great music, regardless of what fans think of the game. The music always hits. So do you have a favorite soundtrack from Scarlet and Violet, or do you have one that you'd pick all time from any other game where you're like, this theme, whether it's a battle theme, a character theme, a route theme, city theme?
This is a cool question. I'm gonna say Nemona's, but there's 2 of them. There's the second one is the best. It starts off like with an electric guitar. And it really tops it off, and then it stays high paced the whole time. I would always in my content turn the music off, and I would always put music of my own outside because I thought it was cool to have the old school Generation 1 soundtrack on there. But then I had connected with my opponent fast enough where I couldn't do none. Ended up on Nemona, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is good." I've come off ever since the Nemona track 2. If you guys haven't heard it,
that's the one.
It's so good.
I love it. Maybe we'll put that one in for the intro for the interview.
It starts with a guitar and it doesn't stop from there. It's good. The second one is great.
I love it.
Oh, it's so good. I love that. Now we're gonna kind of start heading into our shower thoughts. So our first shower thought for you is, let's say you are on the board with the Pokemon Company. You're on the board of the Pokemon Company, and you have a chance to rework or keep terrestrialization. How do you modify it, if at all? Or if you could bring back or add a new mechanic, how would you do so?
Terrestrialization is rough. I think that the fact that this thing can straight up change its typing is bananas. I think that it would be, I think in order for, so I think that terrestrialization is cool the way it is in a casual gameplay. Like to just mow through the game, so much fun. On the competitive aspect, I remember as we were like trying to follow the leaks as best we could to really prepare what the draft league scene is going to look like as like providers of the community. And we're like, all right, terrestrialization, this is what it says on paper. And as we're reading down these bullet points, we're like, there's no way that this actually does this. Where your Pokemon can remove its typing, change its typing completely, but still maintain the original stab type bonus. So essentially you get 3 stabs if your Pokemon had 2 typings. We were reading that, and like, there's no way, that's crazy. And then it basically gets no drawback offensively and gains all the advantage defensively. For example, like what's his name? Bastiodon is a great example, top of my head. Bastiodon is an incredibly like mediocre Pokemon. Terrible typing with Rock and Steel. 1 close combat, the thing drops no matter how high its attack is. All of a sudden, you can terrestrialize into a water type, a pure water type, which eliminates almost all of its weaknesses. And then now it gains water type stab on top of its defensive typing. That was crazy. And even for offensive Pokemon, things like Infernape Kingdom, because I have it recently. It's a fire and fighting type Pokemon, right? Typically, it can't really do much to if you didn't bring your fighting type stab, you can't really do much to it. But now if you terrestrialize into a water type as well, now you have that 3rd water type stab. Or just, let's tone it back a little bit. What happens if you terrestrialize into the same type? They made it even better. You get a 2 times multiplier. So they gave us something like Palafin, the most incredibly powerful Pokemon we have seen in a long time. And they decided to not make it a legendary, and it has like base over 600 stats with 160 base attack. And they said if you terastallize into a water type, you get to double your attack strength. That's crazy. So
and then we're gonna give you Jet Punch on top of it.
Exactly.
And you get Jet Punch,
we're gonna give you 20 base power more on the already powerful Aqua Stab. It's Aqua Jet Stab. It's nuts that I don't know what the thought process was in that boardroom to be like, all right, let's bring these Pokemon in that have like 30 base stat total, higher in attack power than we've had in previous generations. We're gonna bring no defensive Pokemon for our first wave as we start this game. But then we're also gonna make them all. We're gonna give them all machine guns. We're just gonna start to blow stuff up.
Literally, dude.
It's funny because I was talking to my admins like, "There's no way that has to be a typo." So as they came out, we're testing this on like Showdown as I was slowly starting to get that information in. I was like, "How much damage did I just do?" I was like, "What is happening?"
Oh yeah, dude.
So I think that if I were to change terrestrialization, it would be if you're gonna change your type, change your type. All sense. Like if you no longer are a steel type, you are now a water type. I think that would balance it a little bit more.
That's
so
fair.
It basically removes a bad typing and can also flip a matchup offensively if you need that stab. If you have a fairy type that can't hit a steel type and you change to a fire type, okay, now you can use Terra Blast for a fire type stab on a weaker Pokemon that you normally couldn't push through. But you don't get to keep your Moonblast stab. That's bananas.
Yeah, makes sense.
So just basically, I would, if I could balance it myself, is it just remove the same type bonus. If you're going to change type, change your type. And remove what's in the past. Yeah, that's what I would do.
I actually really like that. I think that's a pretty fair way to balance it. Yeah, dude, Palafin, 650 base stat total. And it's so funny because I'm sure they're like, oh, the way to nerf it or to make it fair is the 0 to hero. So it's like, oh, it's not.
But that's no drawback. All you have to do is just bring it in.
It has flip turn. I mean, it's the simplest. You either just switch it out or you just flip turn right away. And the zero form speed isn't even bad either. It's still like 100 the same base speed or something. Yeah, it's like
the same base speed.
And if you're slower, just pull it out, and then you go back in, and you have this basically legendary Pokemon, man.
And it's funny now that we're talking about Palafin. Shout out to Wolf. He said he recently posted a really cool video about the downfall of Palafin. How, like on paper, Palafin was like everywhere in the first in Regulation A. It was everywhere, and then Dondozo kind of kept it, let it fall off the face of the earth. But everyone was trying it because, like on paper, this Pokemon's stats are incredible. This is slacking. With no drawback, except for like giving it
exactly.
Like it's even stronger in bulk. It's crazy. So it was saying that like this is one of those Pokemon that like in time is slowly gonna make its way back. Someone's gonna figure out a way to really cushion that negative aspect of it. Because in VGC it's tough to start 2-on-2 and then your baby guy just doesn't do the damage and you have to just take that step back. But someone's gonna figure it out. And Wolf was saying it very well in that video that like it's gonna take. Someone's gonna find something that's gonna be clever and it's gonna be right back. That Pokemon is nuts. That's the coolest design we've had in a really long time.
It's cool, man.
It's a lot of fun. I like it a lot.
Well, hey, we appreciate you hopping on with us. It like I said, meant a lot to connect. We were super excited to do this when Logan was telling me about it. I'm like, this is right up our alley, man. We talked to a lot of people from like TCG stuff. Nuzlocke. I mean, just like literally every facet of the Pokemon community. But whenever we do like draft league stuff or competitive stuff, that's like up our alley. We're like, yeah, man, this is going to be a fun episode. So we really appreciate it. Before we sign off, we want to give you the stage one more time to share any sort of, well, first and foremost, plug anything you have coming up where we can find you, stuff that's on your radar, where stuff that we can look forward to. And then leave us with some nuggets of wisdom, whether that's about life, about making content, about draft leagues, whatever it might be. Just something for the viewers to take home.
Well, for the plug stuff, for those, hopefully I'll plug you guys a lot in my communities too. So hi guys, I'm the commissioner, the owner of the BreedGX Battle Royale. I would like to think it's one of the top Wi-Fi draft leagues on YouTube at the moment. Incredible names and incredible talent that plays there week in, week out. The league has a developmental league for people that are getting into the space and are still kind of flexing creative muscle, and allows the admins among other coaches who can intermingle. So if you had questions on thumbnails, on how to do things in editing, it allows us to really get you off that. And then find those gems. Like recently we just pulled 2-3 people off the developmental league for the main season starting now. People that just have it. So if you like a good community of draft league, come on into that. We do tournaments over the summer, one's coming up soon. So just keep your eyes out for the BBR. That's kind of what takes up most of my time. So if you guys like draft league, it's a fun place to be. In regards to words of wisdom, Man, that's tough, man. I am older. So I'm actually 32. I'll be 33 in August. My word of wisdom, honestly, is going to be as someone that has a full-blown life outside of Pokemon creation and YouTube, and this isn't my full-time job. This is something that I do as a hobby. Sometimes I feel that sense of responsibility because I do maintain a draft league of this caliber, and I also have a lot of friends that rely on some stuff that I do as well. Don't lose sight on why you do it in the first place. I did for a really long time. I was very into it when I was doing well, and that's when I was in love with the game. And when you have this goggle for what you think could be in the future, don't let that mold from the reason that you did it. That goes with not even just Pokemon, that goes with just life in general and any kind of hobby. Do it because you love it. Do it and remember why you started. When this starts to become stressful, maybe take a step back and assess what's going on. Why are you not liking this anymore? Because eventually this will lead to burnout, and it's going to be something that you end up dreading, and you may not like it the way that it turns out. So I was there at one point. I ended up, there's a video on my channel, I think I left it still public, that I said I was gone, I was done. It was a dark place in my life when I was really in doing some other things in life, and Pokemon, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, was a place for me to escape, and it turned into a chore. I felt like I had too much going on and I needed to fill some deadlines, and I just stopped loving it. So as you continue to go into, if content's your thing, just don't forget why you started in the first place. Make this a love always, number one. Always have fun with it. Don't turn this into, even if it is your full-time job, do what it's going to pay you, but do it because you love it.
I love that. That's perfect, man. That's good stuff. Well, hey, we appreciate that. Again, yeah, thanks for hopping on with us. We'll plug everything for you down below. And as for Logan and myself, we're continuing to do some interviews. We're also doing our Soul Link of Elite Redux right now. We've been doing that about once or twice a week. So keep your eyes peeled on the community tab where you can see when we go live, streaming and having some fun. And until next time, this is Josh, Logan, and Grandmaster D.Rey signing out.
We'll see you guys.
Thanks, y'all.